Welcome to the Omen Comics Podcast, where we talk about everything from writing comics to the philosophies held within them. My name is Michael Nunneley, the creator of the Omenverse, and with me, as always, is my friend Steve Sellers, the creator of the Blitzverse.
Hello. Well, we're getting on this one on the last day of the Easter week. That is actually what our discussion is based on today, but not the resurrection of Christ specifically. We're talking about the effects that his death had on the Omenverse. Um, the reason being is his death and the effects that it had led to the formation of the time and space traveling Guardians of Elayim, written by and created by Steve Sellers.
Hello.
Hello. All right. So Guardians of Elayim. Right away, I mean, you're going, okay, Guardians. I know what Guardians is, but what the hell is Elayim? Um, Basically, just to give you the trust me, very abridged version. um, the tree Yggdrasil uh, was once in existence, but that was the universe of the old gods. That was how things were then. When El was born, um, the Yggdrasil was replaced by a new tree called the Elayim Tree. It is essentially it is space and time all wrapped up into one thing, but basically functions as a map of the universe. Would you say that's accurate?
Pretty well. It connects all these different points in time and space. Certainly time and space on the main Omenverse, Earth as we know it, but it also connects to a lot of other different worlds. The worlds of mythology, heaven and hell. Just about anything you can imagine probably touches somewhere on the Elayim Tree somewhere. Death dimensions like Tartarus. So all of these things, the Elayim Tree touches. And essentially, think of the Elayim Tree as kind of the new Yggdrasil in function. It works in much the same way as it did. It's just that El, who is our god for the Omenverse, destroyed the old one and replaced it with this new one that is connected to himself. So, other than that, it functionally works much the same way. It touches all in time and space, and it touches different worlds that we encounter. You'll actually find a map of the Elayim Tree in Omen number 2, I believe. So if you want to kind of get an idea of what it looks like, I would say pick up that issue and look at that.
Good call. Good call. And it is important to note, as Steve mentioned there, that L is specifically connected to the Elayim tree. And uh, without getting into too much discussion, um, when Yggdrasil was when Yggdrasil was there, space and time didn't necessarily exist. Um, so when El was born, space and time were kind of created, and that was one of the things that grew the Elayim tree. So El, while El was expanding, so did space and time. It's that space and time and El are connected. They're one thing. And so if something happens to the Elayim tree, something happens to El as well. Um, that's particularly important because when you're getting into the death of Christ in this story, you're talking about the son of El. And he also has this connection to the Elayim tree. So him dying actually has a pretty drastic effect on the Elayim tree itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also add, killing gods in general is a very bad thing. Um,
Yeah.
because it unleashes a lot of energy, and even like killing like a minor god, causes an impact. But when you're talking about the son of El, who especially has a connection with the Elayim Tree, and you do something like poking a spear through him, it leads to bad consequences for time and space and for the tree. And this is where the Guardians come in to kind of mitigate that damage.
Right. I want to talk just for a minute about where I got the inspiration for this storyline. And then I'm going to hand the reins off to Steve, who did basically the rest of the creating on this process here. I was reading in Matthew 27, where it actually talks about the death of Jesus and some of the things that went on around him while he was dying or while he was on the cross. And I noted that I put these things together as all happening around the same few hours, and it just kind of blew my mind that that all this stuff was happening because he was on the cross, right? If you want to check it out, I'm actually reading in Matthew 27, verse 45, and then in 50 through 53. But it says there in verse 45, from noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over the entire land. Imagine that. We're talking about in the middle of the day. From noon until 3, that's when the sun's usually out the brightest. Okay, and in the middle of that time, the entire sky went dark like it was nighttime. That cannot escape your attention.
Yeah, I was actually reading through it in preparation for writing the script, and and it kind of occurs to me, especially when you're considering that this is a desert. I mean, we're talking about a city that is in the Middle East. There's not a whole lot of cloud cover or anything like this. The sun will usually shine down pretty brightly right on it. And the fact that there is no light at all, that was rather quite interesting. And also seeing like how, the death of Jesus, or at least the moment leading up to it, is so climactic. Yeah, there are definitely elements of that are in the script. That is what I would go for.
Right on. Yeah, that's definitely a powerful thing. We're talking about a son of our God El in this story, dying on the cross. So just him hanging on the cross was enough to make the sky go dark for a few hours. But then when he actually dies, you get down here into verse 52 through 53. It says, and when Jesus cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus was resurrected and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. I mean, we're talking about a massive earthquake. Here we're talking about buildings falling down. All this major destruction is going on at the death of this guy. And not only that, we're not just talking about a physical reaction to his death. We're talking about dead people coming up out of the ground and walking around the frickin' city as a result of this. Okay, this is not just an earthquake. This is a supernatural occurrence going on here.
The dead rising from the grave.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I imagined if you can picture this, like a kind of a wave broke out from Jesus as he died, and that because of his connection to the Elayim Tree, when he died, it splintered the tree. All of space and time was then splintered. It was in desperate need of repair, and I needed to get a team together that could repair said damage. However, I could not get it to work the way I wanted to do it. Much the same as how he got the White Druid and Michael Nero title. I tried to write it, and I just couldn't get it to work the way I wanted it to. But Steve did a really great job at putting a team together. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, my first thought when you handed this over to me, and there were a couple of things that you said to me. One was the basic premise, what's going on with the Elayim Tree and all of this, that you needed these characters to do this. The other thing was that you specifically wanted like certain demographics represented, and I agreed with that because I wanted to show like the event from different perspectives. So you get the Roman perspective of this, you get the people that are on the ground, in Jerusalem's view of this, outsiders' views of it, like, a Greek person's view of it, an Egyptian's view of it, that sort of thing. So I came up with these 7 characters. And the one I started with was a character called Marius, who you probably would better recognize as Saint Longinus. And the reason I kind of thought of him was because he was there at the scene. In fact, he's the one who speared Jesus, and I had thought, well, that would lead to an interesting redemption story, because he's the one who causes the problem.
Right. I got a comment on that too. If we're talking about crucifixion here, the guys who beat him up, whipped him and all that stuff, drug him out and hung him on the cross, didn't actually kill him. Okay, yeah. The cross is more of a torturing device than it is a murdering device.
Right.
If you want to blame somebody who actually killed Christ, you got to blame Marius.
yes, you do. Yeah, because he's the one who actually speared him. And this is something that definitely weighs on him. But also part of the myth that he had was that he was blind. And I kind of took it as a metaphorical blindness. This is somebody who's blinded by his loyalty to the Roman Empire. This is somebody who was like a last in a line of distinguished soldiers. And so this is somebody who thinks that the empire's values are good, but he's kind of blinded to what it's become. And the fact that he's being asked to kill not only an innocent man, but the Son of God. It's something that, it takes a certain blindness to be willing to do, while at the same time having some degree of sympathy. And so, and what ends up happening actually in the story is the blood of Jesus rains down on Marius's eyes, and then he can see. And so I'm thinking, okay, so basically his story is that he's doing what he thinks is the right thing from his point of view. He's just, from his point of view, he's trying a criminal. This is somebody who is, fomenting insurrection. He's encouraging this. And so, he thinks what he's doing is enforcing Roman law and order. Unfortunately, it's like, he is persecuting somebody who is a man of peace and, really is not necessarily against the empire at all. What he's trying to do is, spread his message of peace. And of course, that's something that the Roman Empire is not really fond of.
I think it's important to note that when you're talking about doing your duty for Rome, that was not just a political act for a Roman citizen, especially not like a soldier or a political officer. It was religious. I mean, how they functioned as a city was a religion to them.
Yeah, I mean, the emperor was worshipped as a god. So, obviously, so when you have a situation where you have an empire which is run by a godlike figure because, religion was, of course, used to control the people. And then you have somebody who is hailed as the Son of God and can actually do miracles. And especially in our universe where, he really does have this power. That's a threat. And so, Pilate's like, yep, take this guy out. Not realizing the consequences. I'm not even sure Pilate even necessarily realizes that, Jesus can actually do, what he can do. He's just out there trying to get rid of somebody who's a political dissident.
Right.
So that's kind of where the starting point for that comes from. So to me, it was kind of interesting with let's have the whole adventure to fix the tree be an act of redemption for Marius. Gradually, try to redeem himself, having the angels give him that chance. And so he's going in there leading the team to go out, and try to fix the tree and try to undo the damage that he's caused. And so that really compelled me in terms of writing the character, and then everything else kind of went from that.
Right. I love the redemption aspect of it. That is, I think when we start getting enough of this story out, people are going to pick up that redemption is a major theme throughout the Omenverse.
Oh yeah, because we have a lot of characters in need of it.
Yes.
Yeah, there are a lot of dark edges, but I like to have characters that have some redeeming features, and and open the door to possibly being able to find it, but with a lot of hard work and suffering along the way.
Right. So talk a little bit about what can people expect from this Guardians of Elayim title? I mean, we know that they're going to travel through time and space, but our little time traveling bunch here does things just a little bit differently. You wanna talk about that?
Yeah, one of the things that I really love about this series, and when you're thinking about time travel, you're probably going to think about like Doctor Who or Quantum Leap and things like that, and there's certain elements of that. I mean, they're jumping from time and space, setting right what once went wrong and things like that. But for us, I think the main selling point and what made it different for me is that this is the Omenverse we're talking about. It's not just that we're doing historical adventures, though, there's certainly some of that. But for us, it's a lot of, we're dropping them into mythological history. So we're dropping them into major events that, are in legend, or, maybe things that, have elements of legends to them that we can add to it. So the first thing that you can expect is they're going to be dropped straight into the Trojan War. And they're going to be like, and I kind of looked at that because I just thought that would be like one of the easiest things to do, something that would be within their frame of reference that they would understand, but also something that would have opportunities for like big events. So Marius is definitely going to have an encounter with Hector on the Trojan side. We're definitely going to see like some of the other Guardians interact with people on the Achaean side, and we're going to kind of see how that all plays out. I don't want to get too much into it, but there's that. I think you can also expect to sort of see maybe an Arthurian adventure somewhere. Yeah, and then down the road, we're going to be playing a little bit into not necessarily the historical domain, but the literary domain. There's going to be definitely a couple of major classical books from medieval history that will pop up. But I really like that kind of stuff. One of the things that I've really gotten into over the years has been literature. So if I can kind of throw in the occasional classical literature reference or the classical legend in there and have the Guardians actually deal with that kind of stuff, I'll do it. But in addition, it's not just that they're going to these things. They can also travel to all kinds of other worlds. They starting off, they're going to be in this area bordering off heaven, and they're going to have, shall we say, the trial by angel, and eventually down the road, we're going to see fantasy worlds. We're going to see definite like mythological planes that interact with the Omenverse, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's like all time and space, plus all of time and space within the context of legend and myth.
Wow. That's not that. Yeah, I want to read this. So if you can hurry up and write it.
Definitely getting there. But yeah, and I would say the upcoming Dark Oracles that I know you've talked about, I think it's fair to talk a little bit about this. We'll get into at least a little bit of the past of the Guardians as well. So, if you want to know a little bit more about them than what the Guardians main title is offering, I would say definitely pick that up too.
And that's while we're on the subject, we're gonna start filling in the blanks of how this universe was built, and how it's laid out. We're like with Guardians of Elayim title, where we're talking about delving into history as it exists in the Omenverse. We're in the Dark Oracles title, the story that I'm working on. That title is going to be split between one story with Steve and one story with me. My story is going to be based on Cain and his family, but it's going to delve into the origins of the universe as far as El is concerned.
Mm. Yeah, the one that I'm doing at the moment is mainly about one of the characters in the Guardians, Nazrin of Parthia. And basically, she's the princess of an empire that is in modern-day Iran. And we're going to see a little bit about how she became who she is. Her grandfather is actually one of the three wise men. So she has that connection to Jesus in that way. And that's one of the reasons why she's involved in the main story. And you're going to see a little bit about how she becomes who she is and some of her more formative experiences in Parthia.
I gotta say, I've read the Guardians of Elayim script that Steve came up with, and it is really a brilliant script. I think you guys are really gonna enjoy this title when it comes out.
Yeah, I hope you guys like it. It was fun to write. This series is a lot of fun for me because it pretty much anything is possible. So it's just a matter of what do I want to throw in at one point.
Nice. All right, well, I think that about does us. I hope you guys enjoyed our Easter-esque episode here. Thanks for hanging out with me as usual, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we will talk to you guys later. Live long and prosper.
Peace and long life.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Omen Comics podcast. This has been Steve Sellers and Michael Nunneley here with Omen Comics. And we encourage you to look into all our Omenverse titles, wherever they might be sold, including Comixology, Amazon, Draw Me and Comics, and elsewhere. If you like our content, please like, subscribe, hit the magic bell for notifications. And until next time, we'll see you in the Omenverse.